Good morning, another wonderful morning here in Pretoria, and welcome to our guests and our co-hosts, and to all of you, the audience, welcome. The show wouldn't be what it is if you weren't here. So today we've got a very interesting guest, and we're going to be talking about a certain subject. Let me ask you a question. The question is, do you like the person that you have become? Not the version that the world expects, but the version built around the pressure, the performance, and the survival and responsibility that you have, the real you. So today we're going to unpack this topic together with Brandon Saunders, who's going to be sharing with us his expertise and his wisdom. So please listen in. It's going to be a really interesting subject today. So here at Vision 2026, we share and give experts an opportunity to share their expertise and wisdom with you so that you can improve your lives and live a better life overall. So I'd like to welcome our co-hosts, Mona Bauer, not anymore. We got married last month, that's why there was a bit of a hiccup. But Mona helps people navigate uncertainty and protect what really is most in their lives. And she comes with a practical business experience. Then we've got Willem Lombardi. Willem is he does human systems, team performance, and he really focuses on actually getting your teams to perform exceptionally well in business. Then we've got Russell John Fagan. Russell is a sales master. He basically teaches us how to actually do sales. He says you're not born to be a salesman, but you can become a salesman, and he offers a fantastic course to do sales mastery. And then we've got Glenn Lees-Jones. Glenn is a map life coach, but what he does is he helps people understand what their purpose in life is. So we've got a fantastic group of co-hosts here who are going to support Brandon and what he's going to tell us today. But most important, let's introduce Brandon Saunders. Now, Brandon has been in the corporate world. He's got a lot of expertise from engineering, science, entrepreneurship, executive leadership, finance, property, and even film industry. So he's coming to get here to teach us how we can live authentically. So I'm so great to have you here, Brandon, and so good. I'm going to hand over to you, and we're going to learn a few lessons from Brandon today on how to live authentically. Over to you, Brandon.
Good morning, David. Thanks very much, and thank you to you and your panel and all of our guests. And thank you for the opportunity. I think discussing this matter it's a very important subject, and it's often an overlooked subject. You know, we kind of go through the motions of life, and often we don't stop to sit and think about who we are and where we're going, and we just keep on ticking over. You know. Carl Jung once said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And I think that is the real journey. You know, the quiet loss of oneself through the modern existence is one of our modern epidemics. And Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, almost conversely said the greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world. So I think it's really important for us to, to have some introspection about where we are. It's a serious matter, but it's not to take life too seriously in that process. Think about where we are, where do we want to be. This is a life that we are fortunate and blessed with to live, and how can we make the most of it, and how can we live it as an aligned life to who we really, really are. So thanks very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, and I'm really just going to be scratching the surface today, because this is a topic that we can go down a bunch of various rabbit holes. So if the audience and everybody online will forgive me if I refer to my notes on occasion, because I want to try and keep on track so we don't run down, the neuroscience or the psychology or the philosophy or everywhere else this could take us. So I'm going to try and keep on track, and then we can have some discussion afterwards. I think one of the first things that we need to start with is we need to recognize that in discovering your passion, your purpose, and your authenticity, we have to understand what gets us stuck in a space where we can't always express that. And I think most people spend so much time becoming who they think they're supposed to be. And this is often because we've been conditioned from life. Most of you will know up until the age of 7 is when our belief system is established. Our subconscious mind is programmed then. It's when we absorb everything. It's when we take in everything from the world. And then also society and our own life and everything teaches us to conform, teaches us to be practical. Don't cause a ruckus, fit in, be realistic, be nice, don't disappoint people. And all of these things that come to it, they're not done with malicious intent. The intention is to keep us safe. The problem is that that's how our brain then gets programmed. So our limbic system kicks in, and if it thinks we're doing anything unsafe. And so we learn how to cope with the life that we have because we understand that level of safety and that level of familiarity. And we know how to deal with those crises that happen in that space because it's programmed into our subconscious mind. And we'll touch on this a little bit later, but as soon as we step into the unknown, that seems unfamiliar. And our limbic system wants to keep us where we are and what we know and keep us on track with safety. And it's a sense of almost emotional safety that that our brain works to try and keep us within. And so slowly people tend to build a life around approval and survival and obligation. And it makes sense why our brains do that. If we were around a couple of thousand years ago, if you weren't approved of, or you were kicked out of the tribe or out of the village and you were left to your own devices, there's a strong chance that you wouldn't survive. It was the tribe and the group and the society and community that kept people safe. Everybody played a role. So you kind of made some sacrifices, you learned to adapt, you learned to fit in, and everybody did their thing. And that's what kept you safe. It was that safety in numbers. But unfortunately, we've taken this through to a world that's very different now, but our brains still operate the same way. So very often, we're stuck in this sense of approval or survival that we're living in. And so we end up with these lives that could look possibly very successful externally. I come across this a lot where people, by all appearances, seem as if they've got it all together, but there's a strange emptiness internally. Something's missing. So what is purpose really, and what is living this authentic life in the sense of purpose, and living passionately around what it is that you believe you're here for? So it's often at the intersection of what animates you, your spirit, what brings you alive, what allows you to naturally express your gifts, and what creates meaning beyond yourself. And very importantly, this has to align with your deepest values. I think it's very hard. We'll touch on this a little later too. It's very hard to live a life that's outside of the values that you have for yourself and what you believe in. I think the Japanese concept of ikigai actually probably explains this best. Ikigai, it's worth looking into and just having a further look into it after this discussion. But it positions purpose at being at that intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And I've heard a lot of people advise and counsel people and saying, just go and do what you love. It's not quite as simple as that, because we're in a world where we have obligations and where we have things that we need to do. And so we need to do a shift if we're in the wrong place and find a way to transition into what it is that is ours. But that intersection is often where we find that sense of where we fit and what it is, because you'll find that if you're getting paid for something and you can live a life and you love what you're doing every day and you're good at it and you're making a difference to the world, you're going to feel quite fulfilled. I know of multimillionaires that have done multi-million rand deals, multi-million dollar deals, and moved on to it immediately. As soon as that's done, there's almost no sense of satisfaction from it, and they're immediately looking for the next deal. And then I know of a nurse who has sat at the bedside of an old lady holding her hand, who opened her heart to her and shared intimate details with her. And she was there to comfort her. And that inspired her and fired her up for weeks. So it really is finding that balance between what it is that's important for you and not really what society tells us should be important for us. It's a very personal journey, this life. And, we are all wonderfully unique, which is beautiful. And it's one of the things I love about humanity and love about people. So how do we know if we are living authentically or not? And this may sound like a silly question. People might think, well, obviously, but there are some signs and there are some signals that our minds and our bodies and where we are will give us. And very often your outer life will increasingly start to reflect whatever your inner truth is. So you're starting to live authentically inside and outside, and you'll feel more aligned. You'll often perform less, so you won't be looking for constant approval. The work that you do, you'll find, will energize you if it's something that you feel more aligned to. You'll find that you're being honest with yourself about what is right for you and what isn't, and you feel comfortable with yourself in your own company. Often people are running away from what they're doing, including themselves, and keeping busy because we're living on this adrenal cortisol roller coaster of all these things that are pumping into our body. And you'll find success, even in small spaces, feels meaningful and doesn't feel hollow, like the example that I gave earlier. Conversely, if you're feeling out of sync and like you're not living authentically, you're going to feel dissatisfied, often chronically dissatisfied. You may feel restless or numb. You're going to constantly seek validation because you don't feel like you are where you are. So you need somebody to constantly say to you, no, you're okay and you're doing all right and everything's going okay. There's often a sense of, in that space, where you fear disappointing people. So you want to make sure everyone's happy, but it's often at the expense of betraying yourself. And I think that's one of the saddest things that we can do is not be honest with ourselves and betray ourselves. Not everybody's going to approve of you. Not everybody's going to like you. Welcome to life. That's just the world we live in, and that's okay. You don't need to have everybody like you. You can still be a good person and have people not like you. It's fine. Again, it's the converse of what I said earlier. Your achievements will feel a little bit empty, and very often you feel like you're acting in a role. You're just playing your part in this cosmic ballet, I think, as Carl Sagan put it, that we're all busy dancing around in. And I think the first step, if we look at, so how do we start to address this, and how do we start to have a look at where we are, and are we in this space, and are there areas of our lives that are incongruent, shall we say? It begins with self-honesty. So just having a look at yourself and asking yourself a few questions. And I'd like to pose a few questions to ask yourself in this space. And one of them would be, what parts of my life feel heavy? Where do I feel like I'm pretending? What do I do mainly for approval? What energizes me naturally? And what conversations make me come alive? And then there's two important ones. I would recommend you take them down and give them some thought further down, perhaps over the weekend. If money was no object and you had no fear of any outcome, what would you pursue? If it didn't matter if you made money or not, and there was no fear of anything happening, what would you get up tomorrow morning and do? There's often a clue sitting in that. And then also, what pain in your life has shaped wisdom that you could offer others? This is very often a journey that happens with people, and you come across it quite a bit, the Viktor Frankls of the world, for instance, where they've gone through a lot of hardship and they've learned and acquired the coping skills to deal with that hardship. And they've taken those lessons and they're now able to pass that wisdom on to other people. And they're now able to help and affect people's lives. So very often we can find where our authentic life is and where our natural purpose and everything is hidden in some of our recurring struggles, because once you've acquired those skills or you've elevated yourself to grow to a space where you can overcome that, that becomes an asset to you. And very often people that have gone through that want to save other people that pain and discomfort. So they want to help other people with it. And then that's where you start linking up those ikigai principles, where you're doing something meaningful for other people. It's something that you love. And you come through the struggle to get that. It's also sometimes hidden in our natural gifts, which often we suppress. A lot of people actually do live their natural gifts, and that's an absolute pleasure and a blessing in life to be able to live in that. So to be living that. But have a look at where your natural gifts are, where your recurring struggles are, and your deepest curiosities. And we'll touch on curiosity a little later as well, because it's such an important part of our lives that we often, ignore. We just get, again, stuck on the treadmill and carry on day to day. And you'll find that you often uncover what your passions might be in the search for a meaningful, authentic life and purpose will arrive when you're taking action. So many people sit and wait for clarity, but clarity very, very rarely reveals itself first. It's action that normally reveals clarity. Anthony Robbins speaks about emotion following motion. And most people end up overthinking this process while underliving. So instead, I would recommend that you try some things, build something, create something, teach, volunteer, travel, write, sing, experiment, whatever it is. You might have a bee in your bonnet to start carpentry and build yourself a spice rack. So have a go at it. Have a go at it. I saw an interesting cartoon the other day with Charlie Brown sitting with Snoopy, and Charlie Brown says to Snoopy, "You only live once." And Snoopy says, "No, Charlie Brown, you only die once. You get to live every day." And that stuck with me because I think it's very, very true. So while we're living every day, let's try some things. Let's be a little curious about where life is taking us, and let your soul reveal itself through engagement in life, because it's not going to happen from isolation from life. Another overlooked point is that your body often knows before your mind. And again, this is, stop me if I start running down a rabbit hole here. This is one of the reasons why I said I'll refer to some notes, because your body is deeply intelligent, and science has actually even proven now that we have neural networks in our heart and in our stomach. So, the old sages and philosophers of old were right when they said, you've been on my heart, not just on my mind. I haven't been thinking about you. It feels like it's coming from here, or trust your gut. So there will be feelings in your body, and pay attention to where you feel expanded, or where you feel lit up, what lights you up and what drains you, what makes you feel more like yourself. And even to the point of who makes you feel smaller and who makes you feel like you can be yourself in their presence. That authenticity will often feel more peaceful. It'll feel calmer. It'll feel more true to yourself. You're going to feel more grounded in that space. Whereas the opposite is true. If you're not in that, you're going to feel performative. It's going to feel forced and often very exhausting and draining. So pay attention to how you feel in those spaces. So what is the biggest thing that keeps us from actually exploring these things and pursuing, aside from our limbic system, our nervous system, and our brain and everything, trying to keep us safe and keep us in the familiar, because that's what it's been trained to do. But it's a fear of failure. It's a fear of judgment. It's a fear of rejection. So fear is the main thing that keeps us out of that. And we all sit here, all of you captains of industry and everything else, and all of us going, I'm not scared. We can tackle this and we can do it. But deep down, our inner child is also still saying, what if I fail? Everybody's going to think I'm a failure. At least this I'm doing okay at. What if everybody thinks this of me because this didn't work out? There goes Brandon with another crazy idea that's bombed again. We have all of these things, and it's all that fear of uncertainty. And what's crazy for me is that as humans, we're always looking for certainty, but there is none. Our brains try and trick us that we have a sense of certainty. No, we have a sense of familiarity. There is no certainty. Anything could happen at any point in time, and that's okay. It's how we deal with it. It's how we roll with it. It's how we learn to face those things that come up. But another really important one is a fear of leaving an old identity. We become very attached to the identities that we have and how people see us in the space that we're in. And when we know more, and when we know better, we're now accountable to do better. And doing better means us holding ourselves to a higher standard. It means us being accountable to ourselves to hold us to what we now know, which means that a part of our identity, old identity, has to die. And growth often involves some form of psychological death. So it's the death of your old identity a death of the old stories you were telling yourself as to why you can't do something. And then the old limitations that we've had programmed into our minds or had put into us all the time. And very often, you just need one good reason why you should do something. You'll find 100 reasons why you shouldn't. One good reason why you should, and you'll pursue it. And you'll think, gee, that's something I can actually tackle. And many people stay trapped in that space because the familiar pain feels safer than the unknown. And that's our brain telling us these things again. So, scientists say that after the age of 35, we think about 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, 90% of which are the same as yesterday's. So we are staying in that familiarity, and it's exactly the same reason why you get people that listen to the same music they used to listen to years ago, and they never try any new music or try and listen to anything new or experience anything new. And it's the reasons why your parents hate your music and you don't like your kids' music. We get stuck in that same sort of familiarity. So be aware of that and understand that there will be a death of old identities, and we've got to say goodbye to old stories that we told ourselves that give us an excuse to stay on the path that we're on. Joseph Campbell described it beautifully, actually, in The Hero's Journey, where he said, every meaningful life requires leaving the known world. And that known world is the world of familiarity that we know and that we're used to and that we don't want to leave because it feels safe. But it's a perceived sense of safety. We feel safe in this space, but outside could be even more safe and even more exciting and even more adventure if we just went and explored on the other side. If we just pushed through that forest of trees and had a look at what was at the end of the road. And I think it's worth us exploring that. So how do we start to get in touch with that? I think some practical ways to connect with that would be remove the noise, for starters. All the social media, the comparative nature of society and the keeping up with the Joneses and the distractions and everything else. And get away from environments that suppress your individuality. So take some time to just sit quietly, because you can't hear your inner voice and where you feel true to yourself when there's constant noise. And then I would recommend in that time that you journal daily. And, we chatted earlier about your body often knows, and you can feel that, and you get a sense of that. When you're journaling, just make a note. This doesn't have to be a long, exhaustive exercise. So the reason a lot of people don't like to apply some of the tools is because it feels like, oh, now I've got to do another thing every day. It's bad enough we get bombarded with the 5 a.m. club, then you've got to have your cold water bath, and then you've got to do your breathing exercises, and then you've got to make sure you get to the gym, and then you've got to drink your lemon water before you have your coffee and all these things. And by the time you've accomplished that, you're exhausted before you even start work. So just from a simple perspective, take a journal and just write down what gave you energy today, what drained you, where did you feel like you were being true to yourself, and where did you feel like you were selling out or seeking approval. And you'll see patterns emerge very quickly. It's a simple little exercise that won't take you too long. We spoke about curiosity earlier, and I think if we're following our curiosity as a second point on this, you'll start to discover things. When you start to take action and think about things that you were curious about before and want to discover more, that's what gives us that sense of life and excitement, right? That's why so many people love to travel, because you get to explore new places, see new cultures, taste new foods, have different conversations. And that curiosity it's a vital part of who we are and of how we learn. So don't dismiss the recurring interests that you've had in your life because they seem impractical. Find a way to embrace them. Your curiosity is very often a compass to where it's taking you, to where your life could be taking you. And then remember that curiosity is something that we had as a childhood. So revisit some of the childhood clues that you had. When you were younger, when you were a child, what fascinated you? What were the things that you were excited about? What did you naturally gravitate towards? What could you do for hours that just felt like time was flying by and you lost track of time? Just remember, as a child, when we're in that space, you see a kid playing on a wooden horse. He's not sitting riding a wooden horse contemplating, where the next, where he's going to get all of his receipts from to submit his taxes. He's not worried about any of that stuff. And he's sitting on that horse, and he is a cowboy. That is what he's doing. He is that. He doesn't think he's playing that. In his head, that's what he is. So that curiosity and that fascination from childhood of what it is that you gravitated towards and what it is that you were fascinated by, there's some clues there. So go and give that some thought about what it was when you were younger. And then remember that your core values is a big part of this. So the other point I would say is, who are you at your core? What is important to you? What values? Is it family, truth, excellence, honesty, integrity, all of these things? Those are your values. Remember that what you're doing must align with your values. It's highly unlikely that you'll be successful pursuing something that fires you up and inspires you that doesn't align with your values, because you're going to feel out of sync and you're going to feel inauthentic to yourself and dishonest to yourself at that stage. Before you are ready, you can start to create. So this is something I want to talk about, which is taking the action that we need to take. Very often we don't take the action because we think that we're not ready. And authenticity often grows through expression. So as I mentioned earlier, start building something, start writing, start building, start singing, start whatever it is that you've been thinking about, that you've been curious about. Have a go at it. Confidence is usually the result of action, not the prerequisite. We have this conundrum in life where people are facing their fears and they go, oh, I wish I had the courage to face this. The courage comes after you face the fear. So courage is the result of facing your fears, because then it empowers you with more courage to face the next challenge that you have in your life. So you don't have to be ready. You don't have to be confident that you got this all together before you do it. Just go, and if you fail, and we will all fail at things, just fail forward and learn and enjoy the experience, because the experience you gain in that will very often take you somewhere else. You know, the old adage of you don't have to, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, or the one that I like to use is you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step, because it could lead somewhere that you didn't even think that is even more amazing than what you had in your mind. So face them, face your fears, take the action even if you don't feel ready. And remember that when we're on that journey, that this purpose is going to quite possibly evolve. Your sense of purpose that you had and who you were at 25 is very different to who you are at 45. And at 25, you might be learning those skills. Now, we spoke earlier about somebody who went possibly through some tragedy and they acquired these coping skills and these learning skills, and now they feel compelled to tell the world about it and make those people's lives better. They wouldn't have had that when they were younger. So allow the journey to unfold. It doesn't matter that we think we want rigid certainty in this space. Your purpose is not necessarily a fixed destination. It's about doing what's meaningful and authentic at the time. So your consciousness is going to evolve, and we're going to grow and we're going to learn more. And as we learn more, we do more. And it's about living truthfully in that season of your life. So I think that's very important. And speaking about that's the seasons of your life, many of you have probably seen those letters or those interviews with people on their deathbed. And I'd like to share this because I think it's beautiful. It's not meant to be macabre or morbid or anything. But I think what's really, really important is in all of those interviews with people at the end of their lives, it's stuff that we know, but it's important to remember, is that at the end of the life, very few people regretted not making more money, not impressing people that they hardly knew, or looking and appearing to be more successful. What they regretted was their unlived potential, the dreams they'd abandoned, and truths that they'd suppressed, that they had wanted to say and didn't share, not trying something because they were too scared, and becoming disconnected from themselves and their loved ones and not restoring that. Those are the main regrets that people had. So in the life, let's go out and live that life. You know, the authentic life will ask you, did I become fully alive while I was here? Not did everyone approve of me. So my cousin and I have got this thing we call the rocking chair test. I don't recall where it was from. I think he was reading it in a book somewhere. And I'm very, very fortunate. My cousin and I are very close. He's a year older than me. And despite him living abroad, whenever we catch up and chat, we're normally reading the same book. We're busy dealing with the same things. And we have a very interesting conversation. And I'm very fortunate to have a handful of people, him being one of them, that I've known for over 40 years, that will keep me in check and that will hold me accountable. And if you have friends like that, call them today and tell them how much you value and appreciate them, because it's a blessing to have them. But we have this thing called the rocking chair test, and it's a very simple test. If you're sitting facing something now, a challenge or an opportunity, and you're contemplating whether you should do it, picture yourself at 90 years old, sitting in your rocking chair on your porch, looking back at now and thinking about this decision. And if you're thinking back at it, going, those were very clear red flags and I was just being overly greedy or ambitious, or, man, I should have had a swing at that. There wasn't so much to lose. I should have just gone and done it. What the older version of you thinks you should be doing, then apply that now. Because very often it'll be the things that we regret not doing in our lives that we'll think about when we're older. So just a reminder, I'm aware of our time here as well, David, but a reminder on some of those final points. And if you want to just take a note of them, remember to tell yourself the truth, be honest with yourself, reduce your external noise and do some journaling about how you're feeling. Follow what gives you genuine energy. Act before certainty arrives. Accept that fear is part of the process and is part of our transformation, and we're just going to face them, and that's okay. Stop building your life around approval. Not everybody has to like you. It's okay. It's okay for you to have boundaries around what's important to you and your loved ones. Become increasingly honest in how you live, how you love, how you lead, how you work. Because ultimately it's our lives. And purpose is not something that we invent. It's very often something that we uncover about ourselves before we stopped abandoning ourselves, before we were conditioned and programmed to think very differently. Dr. Caroline Leaf, in one of her books, she says that you pay a far higher price staying exactly where you are than you do suffering the temporary discomfort to go after what you want. And I really like that. And I'd like to end on this, if I may. One of my favorites is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he, on many occasions, famously urges people to not die with your music still in you. Your authentic self is the music. Deep down, you know what it is. And if you don't, you can uncover it. It's that unique gift that only you've been given. And true success is the ability to be comfortable in your own skin with your own gift and expressing that, regardless of the external chaos that may be around. So don't die with your music still in you. Thanks very much. It's been a real pleasure to share this with you, and I could go on for hours and down these various rabbit holes.
Wow, Brandon, gee, that was like a incredible set of gems to live life. And wow, that was just amazing. And you know, and we were talking earlier on, I was just thinking about a movie that I watched last night, and it's a must-watch movie, and it's called Remarkable Bright Creations, and it's actually came out on the 6th of May. So it's a very, very new movie. It's on Netflix. But one of the things there, they were talking about the octopus, and what stood out for me, what they were talking about, is that they were saying that the octopus basically has all these mini brains in its tentacles, and it can feel throughout its body. And I agree with you. I believe in the head or the mind, the heart, and the gut. If those three things are aligned, basically, then you know it's the right decision. But I love the fact that you said action creates clarity, and I think that's a big learning for me. That's my big takeaway from today. But I'm going to go around the room and ask our co-hosts what they have, their questions maybe to you. So I'm going to start with Glenn. Glenn, please ask Brendan a good question.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, David. And Brandon, that was brilliant. I really suggest that everyone, whether it's listeners and everyone who listens to this in the future, would actually listen to this again and again, because there's so many nuggets within what you've said. Absolutely incredible. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
In your experience, Brandon, I know you spoke about fears as one of the issues, but in your experience, what do you find holds people back from making changes in their lives?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's general trends that run through. So it is fears, as we mentioned, and as you've said. So it's our fears that hold us back. And it's our need for certainty and our need for safety and the familiar. And so we don't want to step out. But the trouble with that is it's an illusion. It's a perceived sense of safety. The other side of it is there could be beauty and joy. You could be right almost at the end of the rainbow. So normally it's our own self-criticism as well as our own fears and our own need for familiarity and certainty. And we've got to just break out of that and remember that you're not going to be comfortable all the time. Growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you're in a good place.
Exactly. Very much so. I think it also has a lot to do with habits, what our habits are. So that's really great.
Exactly. Very, very good point. And the more we do that, if we continue doing the same things every day, I heard it put beautifully the other day where they said, every time you do the same thing that you did yesterday, it's a vote for your old self.
Yeah.
So you need to make a vote for your new self by doing something different. And that's uncomfortable. And we don't like the discomfort, do we?
Exactly. Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Back to you, David.
Wow, thank you so much. Let's go to Russell. Russell's got a good question.
David, yeah, thank you. I'm actually going to use the question you sent through because it's really a good question. And I normally change the questions, Brandon, so that's what the discussion was earlier. But, you and I have had some great encounters already, and I experienced what you're talking about. I experienced it in you. Every time I've met with you, I've experienced that within you. So I've had a personal interaction with you face to face, and face to face is so much different because, like Marna said just now, we're meeting tomorrow for the first time as a group of co-hosts, and we're excited about that energy. Willem, you know what I'm talking about. So I've experienced that, but I would like you to, I see you as someone that's living authentically. I'd like you to explain to the audience that when you actually apply this that you're talking about, what changes and how does that change actually occur? And I think more importantly, influence the people around you. And I'm using myself as an example because the first time myself and Annalisa met you, we drove away. I told you we were so excited about what was on the table and wanting you to be part of that. Yeah. But it wasn't because of the program where I wanted to include you. It was actually because of who you are, if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
But I want the audience to understand what I felt, what I experienced.
Yeah. Thanks very much. It's very high praise. Thank you, Russell. I think the first thing that you experience is you realize that you've got to make changes and they're uncomfortable. And as Glenn alluded to earlier, there's habits that we got to break. And we're a product today of what we thought and believed yesterday. So everything's an inside job. I always tell people, you've got to start with what you're thinking about and how you feel about those things. So by changing what you think, you'll start to align more with what it is that the outcome that you want to achieve. So, when you're thinking right, you're going to start living right. But as I mentioned earlier, there's an accountability in that. You have to now hold yourself to a higher standard of what you know. And when I speak about self-honesty, it's if I've told myself I'm going to get up and start exercising tomorrow and I don't, I've lied to myself. So I've been dishonest and disingenuous with myself. And that's where our honesty starts, with ourselves before it starts with anyone else. But when you start to live that way and you start to live a life that is more authentic to yourself, it's, you were talking about an energy exchange when you meet people. You actually give, unconsciously, you give other people permission to live that way. Because you're comfortable being who you are, and you tell people they can be comfortable being who they are, and they start to feel more comfortable being who they are because they don't have a fear of judgment, and you're not condescending, and you're not looking down on anybody because you want them to be their authentic selves, as weird and funny and crazy and whatever as they may be. And I think the world would just be a wonderful place if people could do that and be tolerant of people being different to them and just being their authentic selves.
Yeah, I think there's the golden nugget, is that being authentic, you allow others to be authentic. And I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Brandon. David, back to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Who you are rubs off on other people. So fantastic. I love the permission, giving permission. That's fantastic. Willem, I know you've got a burning question. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. That was absolutely incredible. And this is my stuff. I love this. Finding your purpose is like finding gold, and you don't just walk down the street and see, well, there's a piece of gold. It's moving lots and tons of soil. So it really keeps you sometimes busy. It's hard work. It's building muscle, and it's not so easy. But if people then start feeling, and I like the word feeling because it's all about energy in your life, and you feel that energy, you feel that difference, and raising the awareness about this, what can they do next?
I think it comes down to trusting yourself again. So if you feel that this is something that you're drawn to, what is the thing that's stopping you? Why are you not doing it? Is it your fears and your familiarity? Is it because there's practical things? I'll tell you one of the things that I come across quite regularly, and I don't want to detract too much, but I'll come back to addressing your question, is particularly dealing with men as they kind of hit middle age. And then they think, well, gee, I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to sail, or I've always wanted to, whatever it might be. But now they've got these obligations, and they've got children in school with private school fees, and they've got the bond repayments and the holiday home and everything else. Everything looks successful, but they feel like they want to go back and do something that they loved when they were a kid. They want to take up motocross riding again, or whatever it might be. But these are good men that are committed to their obligations and are not just going to run away from it. So quietly they die inside because they are doing it for the approval and the expectations of everybody else, but they're doing it with good motives and good intentions. So I refer to that example because you can be in that place and still be curious and still take action against something that you feel inspired by, or whether it's as a hobby or as something else. And you can have that conversation with your loved ones and the people that have expectations of you and that you have obligations to, and say, listen, I love this. This is what I've always wanted. I wanted my family. I want to be here for you, and I want to support you and everything, but there's things I need for me too. And I'm not going to take away from this to get that, but I need you to allow me that grace to go and explore some things that inspire me, that make me feel more alive, that'll make me a better person at home and within your family. So you can do it in small bits and still see where that path takes you and still stay committed to your obligations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Wilhelm. Thank you. If there are any questions from the audience, please put them in the comments, and we'll post those to ask Brandon to answer those. But let's go to Mana at the moment. Mana, you've got a burning question, I'm sure.
You almost started me on men in their midlife crises, because while they have that, they still have to tend to the house and the kids and the whatever needs to be done. So, yeah, very important point there. You spoke about overthinking, and I'm still talking about experience in my own life, where I went through a whole lot of challenges in my life for a period of time. And sometimes, you go on a journey to find yourself and to find your purpose and to find your why. And you sometimes overthink that a little bit. I think, and you spend too much time. And I found for myself that it pulled me down. At what point, or what advice would you give people when they get stuck there? And what point do you actually get out of that hole and bucky bilbity worrings and get out of your problems and just do life? Because while you spend too much time, I think, it was my personal experience, you miss out on life. Life goes on. And you're in this pool, this whirlpool, and it actually pulls you down rather than it actually picks you up. How do you get out of that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and you're preaching to the choir, if I may say, because I tend to be an overthinker, and I think one of the challenges we have in this sort of era of metacognition, as they say, where you're thinking to the extent that you know that you're thinking, and you know what you're thinking about, and you know the impact of those thoughts that you're thinking about, and then you can really very quickly go down that hole. So it's one of the reasons why I say take action. You don't have to know, you don't have to see the whole staircase before you take the first step, because if you sit and ruminate in that, you're not going to get all the answers there. You're not going to get it. What you're going to do is you're actually probably going to find more excuses as to why you shouldn't be doing it, because your brain's going to try and protect you. Your nervous system's going to try and protect you and go, well, that's dangerous. You shouldn't be going there. And this is why you don't succeed. Remember last time when you did that and you messed that up. Remember when you said that and you shouldn't have said that and you were just in a bad mood and it was all your fault that argument happened. You're just going to get into that spiral. And there's enough out in the world that can potentially, be dangerous or mean. We shouldn't be mean to ourselves, So I think I like to use the term of treat yourself like somebody you're responsible for taking care of. So how would you look after that person? Would you make sure that they were well fed and healthy? Would you make sure that they were comfortable? Would you make sure that they were spoken to well? And do that, because we're often our very own worst critics. So you can get stuck in that mindset, but it's very easy to stop that. A friend of mine refers to it as scratching the record. You start in that conversation and it goes around and around. Sometimes you just need to smack the needle and get into another train of thought. And the beauty of our minds is you can put in and think about whatever it is you want to think about. The challenge is it's requiring those neural networks, because if you're thinking in a certain way and you've done that repeatedly, and this is why it's tougher for some old dogs like me, where you've got to sort of retrain your brain, because you're on this. It's now a freeway that's an easy path to cruise down. Your mind just automatically goes and thinks that way. Now you want to change how you're thinking. You're walking off the freeway with a panga and you're chopping down a pathway. And every time you take that pathway, it gets more worn and it's easier and easier to, to think along that way. But I would say taking action, because it also then releases hormones and things in your body when you're taking action and doing something active. So it's a positive thing and gets you out of your own head. So doing something active in your body, I would say, is the best way to do that when you're overthinking. No,
we have this friend, he wrote a book, and he's overthinking it, and we all told him, this book needs to go out. But he can't get to that point. He's stuck in that whole whole thing about, it's not good enough, but it is good enough. It's better than good enough. So he tends to overthink, and he's just disappeared from everybody's lives at the moment. And that's exactly what happens if you spend too much time in finding yourself. You are here. Get up.
That's fear again. That's his internal fears. It's his own fear of judgment by people that's not going to be good enough. It's his own fear of failure. We saw it in the scientific and research world, where people would research something and then they wouldn't want to put it out there because they could still make it better, and they could still make it better, and they could still make it better. In the corporate space and in the marketing world, they talk about a minimum viable product. When it's just as good as it needs to be, we put it out there while we work on version 2. And I think that's probably how we should look at life. What is the minimum I need to do to take action here? Let me take action while I work on a better version of that.
Sure. That's such good advice. My mom used to say always to me, David, just do it. And, I see where that actually comes from, because I see that Brandon also said that. So maybe that's where my mom got it. But the fact is that my mom always
helped raise Richard Branson.
So my mom always used to say to me, just do it. But she said to me that a long time ago. So I think it's even before Branson was around. So oh wow, Brandon, that was amazing, and I see there are a lot of people who've really enjoyed this. So for listening, and I've asked for questions. I don't see any. So because of time, let's move on to the next part. And what I want to ask you, Brandon, from your final message to the audience and to us, because I'm learning a lot here. I mean, I love that thing that you've got, the life architect, because that's really what you are doing. You're giving me a plan on how to live my life. And I love that. Really, I think that's so powerful. But what is your final message to those people that are feeling stuck, maybe overwhelmed or disconnected? What would that final message be, Brandon?
I think, without getting too philosophical, I think the point of life is to be lived. So you're stuck because you're stuck in your head. You're overthinking, like Mana was saying earlier. You're looking for reasons as to why things are so bad. When you take full accountability for your life, when you realize you're not a victim of your life, that you then empower yourself to take all the actions you need to then rebuild your life how you want, and the life architect thing is not necessarily a starting from scratch. You can knock down a couple of walls and renovate. So it's just something you've sparked in my mind now too. But I think if you're feeling stuck, take those tips that I gave you. Where do you feel like you are free? Where do you feel enlightened? And where do you feel edified, for lack of a better term? Where do you feel those feelings, and where do you feel like you're selling yourself out? And remember that there's always a solution. You don't have to be in that space all the time. There is always a way that you can find. Have a chat to somebody, use some advice. In fact, what I'd like to do is, if there are people here that feel like that, or they feel like they just want to have a chat, I'm very happy for them to drop me an email at Brandon@LifeArchitect. And just so that I know it's from this discussion, and just put in the title, the Vision 2026, and I'll gladly give you a 15-minute session just to have a chat and see where you are. Obviously, no charge or anything like that, because some people are in that space and they just need to, if there's a tool or two that I can assist you with to help you with that, I will gladly do it. So if that's you, please just drop me a message. I'll gladly set up some time to have a chat with you, because sometimes it's a very personal thing and it's a very specific challenge that people are going through.
Thank you so much. I dropped off there for a second, but I'm back. And there's a question that's been asked here. Would you like to address that quickly?
Yeah, sure. Let me see here in the comments. There we go. Is this the one from Kabwe?
Yes, Kabwe.
Okay. As much as we would do things that are meaningful to us, how do I do something new when you have a whole team's livelihood is on the line? Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question. It's very similar to the question that Wilhelm asked me. If you do something new in a team's livelihood, I'm not sure if she's referring to a family that's being supported, or wanting to do something new, and her absence from it would leave the team without her. But you can start to make small changes in the direction that you want to go. Sorry, Kabwe, forgive me if I'm not understanding exactly what you're meaning by a whole team's livelihood is on the line. If it's a group of people that you're supporting and that you're responsible for, you can still explore the things that you want to do while you're taking care of that, and allow that to open up and find a new path as far as that goes. But you can also do things that are meaningful to you that aren't a career change. You could volunteer, you could do a number of things that inspire you. I know a lot of people that go and work with animals or work with the elderly just because they love it, or clean up their own parks in their community. So there's lots of different things that you could do. But I mean, Kabwe, feel free to reach out to me about your own personal matter there. I'll gladly have a discussion with you, no problem at all.
Fantastic. Can you just repeat the email, please, Brandon?
Sure. It's Brandon, Brandon, @lifearchitect.co.za.
Fantastic. And I just, Kabwe was just explaining that, but Kabwe, please reach out to Brandon, and you can have a look at what he has to say. Let's go now to what we do now is just to ask each of our co-hosts what their takeaway is. What are they going to take away from today, and they're going to actually apply in their lives this coming week? And I'm going to start with Mana.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is the overthinking. Don't overthink. Just go and do what you need to do. But also trust yourself and trust your gut before you just go into something and you ruin whatever you've already built. And if I can quickly go back to Kabwe, is that what helped for me was I trained someone to be me, a mini me. To take over my responsibilities when I'm not there.
Thank you, Anna. Let's go to Wilhelm. Wilhelm, what's your biggest takeaway from today?
Yeah, I think it's important to just feel the energy. You must feel where's the energy and what energizes you. And I think the problem is we become insensitive to our feelings. you know, especially men. We don't feel, you know, but we must start to feel. And the moment when you feel this thing energizes me, go for it. And another takeaway, yeah, look back to when you were a child, and just think about those dreams, those things that fascinated you, as Brandon said, and just check in on that again. And that's what I think I must do, to check back and then feel the energy. Thank you, Brandon.
Love that. Love that. Russell, what is your final takeaway from today?
Yeah, like I said, I've had interactions with Brandon, and I'm delighted that he's part of a organization I've invited him to. But something you said that really, it was like an aha moment for me. The last 5 years, I think I've gone and did a 180 in my life and gone to a place of being authentic, speaking my mind, obviously with respect and so forth. But there was a thing that you said that just kind of like, wow, wait a minute. Now it makes sense. It resonates with what I'm doing. And I could just never put my finger on what that is. So I want to thank you for the following statement you made is, purpose is not what you invent. It is what you uncover. And I've realized that 5 years, my life has been more purposeful, because after my divorce, I had to change everything and I had to restart again. And I found purpose in that struggle. I found purpose in taking the action, like you said, doing that. So yeah, my takeaway is definitely, before 5 years ago, I was trying to invent my purpose, thinking that I have to be this and I have to be that and please people. The last 5 years, it's through struggles and living life as authentic as possible. And that's also thanks to my wife. Got into a space where I've actually uncovered my purpose. And you've just been able to take that whole thing that was clouded in my mind, and you just brought clarity with that sentence. So thank you. That's my takeaway.
Fantastic, Russell. Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I uncovered my purpose a little while ago, and that is giving expertise a voice, which is exactly what we're doing today. So thank you for that. Glenn, what is your big takeaway?
Thanks, David. I often talk about discovering purpose and not just finding purpose, because it's actually inside us. We don't go out and find it. It's actually within us and inside us, and we actually discover it. And that's quite a fascinating thing. I gave a statement yesterday to a group. In fact, David was there. And I said, your ability needs responsibility to expose its possibility. Okay. And I really believe that can really help people in terms of understanding the concepts. But for me, if I had to give not necessarily one word, like David always says, but 2 words, I would say purposeful living. Living life on purpose. Purposeful living. Thanks once again, Brandon. Absolutely brilliant. I will certainly get together with you for a copy sometime. I think it'll be a great conversation. And thanks, Dave, and the co-hosts. Bless you all. Have a good day.
So
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yvonne has put a message in there. I love that message. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you to all the people who have actually interacted with us on comments. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to ask Brandon to actually go back and actually respond to each of those comments in the comments in LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. So you will get a personal message back from Brandon. So for Brandon for doing that. So next week we've got a very exciting person who's going to be talking to us about a charity drive. They basically over a period raised 350,000 Rand and gave that away charity on the specific charity day. So we're going to be talking about that, and it's called Sons of Thunder. And we've got the individuals who actually came along and actually did this. 2 of them, a husband and wife team, and they decided to actually go along and do this charity drive. And we're going to be talking to them and finding out a little bit more about what they did and how they did this and so on. So it's going to be a really interesting event. Please come listening Thursday. Follow on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. That'll be great. You can always look back and you can go back to this on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and listen into what Brandon has given to us today. Fantastic set of gems to live life, to actually go along and plan your life as a life architect. So thanks so much, Brandon, for being here today and just sharing your wisdom and your gems with us. And please reach out to Brandon. I think he was someone who can really help not only us, but you as well. So thank you very much, Brandon. I'm going to ask the co-host just to stay on. We've got a little video just to play it to the end. And I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and thanks to the co-host. Blessings to you. And tomorrow there will be a newsletter that will basically sum up what Brandon shared with us. So you can most honestly, go and look at that and follow that. So thanks so much. And I think Yvonne has just put another message there. Thanks very much. I really thank you. Oh, there we are. So Brandon, if you could also just reach out to Yvonne, I'd really appreciate that. Great. Thank you all. Have a fantastic week.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Vision 2026. We give expertise a voice. A platform where bold ideas, lived expertise, and real experience shape how we grow, lead, and create impact in 2026 and beyond. Meet your host, David Bauer, bid architect and strategic thinker, who helps leaders turn complexity into clarity and gives business leaders a voice that wins in the real world. Marna Rowitz, seasoned strategist and business leader, helping people protect what they've built and grow with clarity, resilience, and foresight. Glenn Leese Jones, Map 4 life coach with decades of experience guiding people and entrepreneurs to find purpose, set direction, and map their journey to meaningful success. Russell John Fagan, sales mastery trainer, who brings practical sales insight and transformational strategies that help individuals and businesses increase their influence and performance. Wilhelm Lombard, human systems and team performance coach focused on helping organizations strengthen team alignment, leadership energy, and human systems, so people are ready for growth before growth exposes weaknesses. Together, we bring unique perspectives and deep expertise so you can think bigger, act bolder, and make 2026 your breakthrough year. Hit that subscribe button now and follow Vision 2026 for your weekly dose of expert insight, future-focused conversations, and real-world perspectives shaping South Africa. This is Vision 2026, giving expertise a voice.